Welcome to podcast number 193. Do you want to know how you can help your organization not drift into massive failure? Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to be with you today. I've been on a lot of interviews recently, which I think have been fantastic, at least for me, because I learned so much. But I'm excited to do a solo podcast and talk directly to you tonight. And, I know it goes out tomorrow morning, but right now I'm in my recording studio and just getting ready for the podcast and publishing it for tomorrow morning and hoping that those good wishes and this information can head your way in a good way. One thing, I'm hoping that the audio quality is better. I just put up a bunch more sound absorption tiles in my recording studio. I sense a little bit of an echo. I would love to get either a text or a LinkedIn message or an email or something asking what you think about it on your end, if you think we've fixed the problem or not, because I do want the sound quality and everything to be just top notch for you, especially as we head towards episode 200, and we'll continue to make improvements and just do a really good job for you. So anyway, where was I? So today we're going to talk about drifting into failure. So this is going to be part one, I think, because there's so much, and actually there might be a part three to this, because I want to interview Jake Williams, or at least have a conversation with Jake Williams when he and I get a chance, because he recommended this book to me and it's fantastic. And it talks about how companies, organizations, and teams can drift into failure. And so I've been paying quite a bit of attention to this book in the last week and a half, and just mind blown. Fantastic, good content. I'm going to talk about the concepts from a principle standpoint. From my perspective, I'm not stealing from the book or plagiarizing. I don't know if you can plagiarize by audio, but anyway, the book got me to thinking about this and triggered me to be thinking about subjects like productive paranoia and people working as a team and being incentivized to bring problems to the surface. These are all circumstances and concepts that we've talked about before, but they're so important that I want to put this into an outline and really give you some good content today. So I hope you're doing well. This sounds really funny, but I kind of miss you. I kind of miss the solo podcast because I've been doing so many interviews lately. So I'm happy and excited to be with you tonight. So I want to share a little thought with you tonight, and I've been thinking about it for about, it's been about 10 or 12 years. It may even be like 14 years now. I read a book and it was about the founding fathers. I think it was 1776, or it was a video. But anyway, if you ever check out 1776, amazing book. But anyway, they were talking about, and I think this came from Benjamin Franklin, the comment that painters throughout history had found it difficult to distinguish between a sunset and a sunrise. Meaning, if you're just, doing it with paint on a canvas, how do you distinguish the two and communicate the intent of the painting or the feeling or the message of the painting? You know what I mean? How do you do that? And boy, that got me thinking. I never could place it. And he made a comment so there was a sunset. I think it was on the back of George Washington's chair. I think that's what happened. Anyway, so he was like, and because of the Constitution that we've created here, it seems to me that image, that piece of artwork is a sunrise. And so I've always just had that in the back of my mind thinking like, what does that mean? Is there more depth to it? And the other day I kind of had some insight, and you're like, Jason, you should have known this. But anyway, it's new to me. There are a lot of things that distinguish a sunrise from a sunset. But really, if you think about it, one of the main distinguishing features is what comes next. What comes after the action of the sun? What comes after that beautiful scene? What comes after the partial darkness and the partial light? Is it going to be a day full of activity and progress and interaction and connection and hope? Or is it going to be a night of darkness? Or is it going to be a night of fun and partying? What comes after the sunrise or the sunset really make it what it is. And so I thought that message was really nice. Whether you have had a sunrise or a sunset in your life, or felt like 2020 was a sunset rather, or you just been feeling down and kind of feel a little bit sunsetty lately, it really is what comes next that determines what it really is, whether it's a sunrise or a sunset. And so I would just say in life, as we set goals, as we get clarity, as we become more of who we really want to be, who we were designed to be, we can do some beautiful things that take us into the daylight of progress. And so that sounds like a cat poster a little bit cheesy maybe, but I thought it was a beautiful thought. Definitely wanted to share it with you as I open up this podcast. So what am I excited about in life? I will tell you, I got some inspiration to go ahead and sign up for the Tony Robbins Business Mastery. I mean, that's a $10,000 course, but it really talks about how to structure businesses, how to scale, how to get information out there, how to market. And the universe was telling me, or God, or whatever you personally believe, and I believe it's God, but that now is the time. It might seem a little bit foolish as a business is first starting up, but man, I signed up for it. I felt good about it the whole way. And I'm excited to do that in March because the knowledge gained there, not only from a personal development standpoint, but from a business standpoint, is going to be over the top. And so I'm excited about that in life. And, just a quick shout out to you. If you haven't, what are you waiting for? I mean, there's nothing holding you back. If you're saying you don't have the money, I mean, look at me. I got 11 kids to feed and a business to take care of with overhead. And I just stopped full-time employment and we don't have all our clients in yet. And I went ahead and signed up for training. That's how important it is. So what's holding you back? Sign up for that training. So that's what I'm excited about in life right now. Let me also talk about some feedback from our listeners. So here's one really nice comment. Part of my daily routine while heading to the job site every morning is elevating construction with interviews, training, and techniques that will make the built environment better for workers, our customers, companies, and the industry as a whole. I think he got that from the actual podcast title, but he says, thanks, Jason Schroeder. This person is taking it to the next level and doing some great things and also sharing the podcast with his team. So I want to say thank you to you. You know who you are. Fantastic stuff. Grateful for the positive feedback. I'll take negative feedback too, or feedback for improvement. We've got a lot of really good ratings on the podcast and just a lot of great stuff. And so we will continue to improve, even though there might not be a lot of motivation of, things are broken. And that actually ties into, and I'm not saying there aren't, I'm just saying it doesn't appear right now. So that ties into the podcast perfectly today as we talked about drifting into failure. And so here's some conflict for you. In fact, I think I have to do a little shout out for somebody. So somebody had signed up for, and there's been quite a few people that have signed up for the personal mastery or the personal organization mastery course. And somebody was like, hey, there's 2 sections without a video. Was that how it's supposed to be? No, he didn't say it like that. He was like, thank you for the podcast. Here's some feedback. Here's some conflict for you. He's like, what about these 2 sections? And I thought that was neat. He's using my words back on me, and I thought that was special because it's kind of a connection there. But so I went ahead and fixed those 2 pages. I don't know that they were necessarily broken, but for ease of use, I fixed that training to be better for him. And I just like that we're getting a common language here. So here's some conflict for you. Driving or drifting into failure happens almost imperceptibly. What are you doing to make sure that it doesn't happen to you? So I'd like to do a story. This isn't a story from me. I actually used this quote from a summary online. And so I'm hoping that it's okay to share it here. If it ever isn't, I'll take it down. But basically, this is the summary, and it's from Drifting into Failure. Here it is. In 1966, a portion of a coal mine tip, usually material, near Aberfan, South Wales, I think at Aberfan, South Wales. Sorry, if you're from South Wales, I apologize. Anyway, slid down into the village and engulfed its school, killing tragically 144 people, including 116 children. Investigating events leading up to the disaster, Barry Turner found that this period was characterized by events that went unnoticed or were disregarded because they were at odds with taken for granted beliefs about hazards and norms for their avoidance. Turner considered the managerial and administrative processes to be a promising target for understanding this discrepancy between a buildup of risk and the sustained belief that it is under control. For Turner, the space that gradually opened up between beliefs and growing risk was filled with human agency, perceptions, assessments, decisions, actions. And so that's the story I want to lead off with. And this happens to us all the time. It happens to us in construction. It happens to us in other industries. It happens to us at churches. It happens to us in families. It's just like the example that I gave you the other night. And I want to cover a couple of points in case I forget or don't cover it later on. But we are not productively paranoid enough. In fact, I got that feedback about being productively paranoid from a very trusted mentor when I was working at DPR. And he was coaching me to not be complacent. He said, Jason, you don't want to be paranoid to a fault. You want to be productively paranoid. And, assume that things can go wrong and really take the steps to head in a good direction and constantly improve and to anticipate and fix problems even before they might happen and they're right there in front of you in your face. I thought that was really wise. It didn't kind of come to me until reading this book and years later, hearing it from the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, it's kind of coming to pass and coming together. But we're just not productively paranoid enough. And I've experienced that when I was a director. I was super paranoid. Not only was I trained at DPR to be productively paranoid in that wonderful culture, but I was also ultimately responsible. I would have to call the families. I would have to call the owner. I would have to tell the CEO of the company if something went wrong. And so I was really paranoid. I was like, hey, what about this? What about that wall that's hanging over the road? What about their crew? Are they trained? What about this? What about equipment being overloaded in any of the column bays on the floors? And there were so many times, and I'm not criticizing them, but there were so many times that people on the job site were like, dude, bro, it's fine. We do this all the time. But even though they were doing a great job and they're fantastic individuals, the people that I'm referencing, we do it all the time. It's not a big deal. You're overreacting. It's not a culture or a mindset that's going to do us any favors. In fact, it's going to allow us to drift into failure. When you look at this story, this coal mine, not only were tips or unstable material, not only was it fairly common in the industry just because they've seen it and they knew it was wrong, but they've seen it a lot, right? Not only was that commonplace, but concerns within the school were squelched by administrators or people people in the village, and the village was there, to my knowledge, to support that mine, the coal mine. And so people were told, you're overreacting. This isn't a big deal. And because people weren't taken seriously, then it became a problem. And I've told you before about the stories that I really like about leprosy, that it's a germ that destroys your nerve endings, and that's how you deteriorate, because your body doesn't know to repair itself. You've heard the stories of it's like a frog in boiling water, right? You put it in water and then you just slowly heat it up, and then, the frog dies. And if there are frog lovers out there, I apologize. I've never done it personally, but, you always hear the story. Or I've told you the story about how they kill brain tumors. They treat brain tumors by having non-lethal strains of the polio virus that they inject into it, to where your body eventually recognizes that it's a foe, that it's an enemy, that this is an adversary in your body, and your immune system will go to work. And that's really the problem. And I'm going to give you a summary. This is why this is like 2 podcasts, because it's such a big topic. But the challenge I want to give you as we go through this topic today is what on your job is drifting into failure without you noticing it because it's commonplace, or what in your company is drifting into failure, or whatever environment you're in, or what at church is drifting into failure, and things. So here's kind of the general concept of the book, and Jake and I will talk about this if we ever get on a podcast together and our schedules align. But as companies and teams get bigger, most of the time companies attempt, and I do say the word attempt intentionally, to create control through systems, through bureaucracy, through process. And, I know of some very large companies where that's kind of worked for them. There's a lot of fallout and there's consequences to it, right? But They attempt to govern the larger organizations with ultimate control. And, if you read some of the best books, like there's a really good book, Now Break All the Rules. I don't know if it's Now Break All the Rules or First Break All the Rules. Sorry. It's a management book that I thought was fantastic. It talks about how, and in Scaling Up Excellence, it talks about how as organizations get larger, there's an inherent fate or inevitability that more bureaucracy will be needed. I'm not talking about the natural increase of bureaucracy as organizations get larger. I'm talking about the organizations attempting to dominate with control, which I've seen recently with some organizations. It's very troubling. Instead of, and this sounds like I'm lining my pockets with money and selling something, but instead of focusing on training, instead of focusing on principles, instead of focusing on values. I remember a wonderful quote one time that said, "I teach them correct principles and they govern themselves." The best companies in the world do that. They're principle-based, they're value-based. Everyone knows where the organization is headed, and they focus on a lot of training. In fact, I just got signed up to do a scheduling project operational excellence boot camp and a superintendent boot camp with this company. And when they went through the approval process, it was like, hey, I want to do this for my people. And when they got approvals from different people, it was like, yeah, if it's going to benefit our people, let's spend the money. You know what I mean? Just this great organization that focuses on principle, vision, and training. And that's the tendency. Companies tend to go towards control and process instead of values and training. And when you have, even if you have thousands of employees or tens of thousands of employees, how much less of a risk is there if you've done the vision and values right, or your core values or your purpose or your principles and your training right? How much better is it to have 10,000 people knowing where they're headed and being enabled to speak up? And I would say that that's invaluable. And so that's kind of, that's the main takeaway from the book for me, is that we need to, with our teams and our companies and everything else, go a little bit less towards control and more towards training, people development, principles, being a principles and value-based organization to where everybody clearly knows where they're headed and can autonomously head in the direction of the company, and that those values, the mission, the purpose, the vision, the principles of the company are the basis for human systems, for hiring and firing and for things like that. Because here's the problem, and I think that, I don't know how far I'm going to get into this because it's so deep, but organizations drift into failure when people don't speak up, when there isn't a diversity of thought, when there's too much bureaucracy, when people think warnings are overreacting, when companies focus too much on metrics instead of actually seeing if they're succeeding on a people level and how their people feel within the organization and knowing whether or not there's trust there. Because what this book was talking about is there was an Alaska Airlines flight that plummeted to the ground, and there's a famous movie that kind of mimics it, right? There were oil disasters with British Petroleum. There was this material slide with this tip in Wales, right? Where was it? Hold on a minute. Let me check here. South Wales, sorry. Okay. These things happened because the bureaucracy created environments where human beings were able to come and do their jobs, and with human agency, with perceptions, assessments, decisions, and actions, interacting as best they knew how with the systems and the bureaucracy, made decisions that they thought were acceptable, but at the end of the day, the system wasn't ready to receive them. Meaning, if you on your project site have an environment where people aren't incentivized to speak up, where you don't have lean ideas being created every day, where you don't actually stop and fix work as you go, where you prioritize production over quality, and where people are criticized for speaking up, that structural culture, the systems on your project site, the environment that you have created is making it to where no one on that project site feels safe to bring something up, nor do they perceive that it matters and that people would care. So we have to create environments, and I'm kind of skipping forward just a little bit. We have to create environments where we are values-based, where safety is a part of those core values, where we are developing lean cultures where we stop to fix what bugs us, and where we are willing to stop the work, and where we are productively paranoid, and where people speak up. Those are the kinds of cultures that we have to create if we're going to get people to independently prevent us or help us from drifting into failure. And that could be tearing a wall down, or somebody falling off a building, or the whole building not, missing a key component in the reinforcing. There's a number of different things that could happen here. Okay. But the problem is people not speaking up, no diversity, too much bureaucracy, and people thinking warnings are overreacting. And so, actually, I think that I'm going to stop there. There's so much more to this concept. But the problem is that companies are not identifying risk, and they hope for the best. And so we have to have ways and build cultures to really do that, to ask ourselves, are we in a position culturally where the problems will rise to the surface? And so I'd like to ask you a question, and I'll do the follow-up part 2 podcast here for us on Monday. If everything goes well, it'll be out Monday. So I'd like to ask you a question and give you an assignment. Please think about what are you doing in your culture that's either suppressing people speaking up and getting feedback and noticing the risks, or what are you doing to encourage those to be brought forward? And what I want to close out with tonight, and the reason why I think I'm in a good spot right now, is that there's a book by Jim Collins, How the Mighty Fall, I think is what it's called. I didn't put it on my notes here. I apologize. But the question is, are we noticing issues? And I want to read you the different stages of how a company falls. And this is directly from the summaries on his website. My advocacy is that we read his books. We patronize his sales, what he does in his company. I'm not taking anything from him. I'm referencing this as an excerpt, as a quote. So stage 1, it's called Hubris, Born of Success. And I'm going to read this, so I apologize. I don't read a lot of things, but I'm going to read this. Great enterprises can become insulated by success. Accumulated momentum can carry an enterprise forward for a while, even if its leaders make poor decisions or lose discipline. Stage 1 kicks in when people become arrogant, regarding success virtually as an entitlement, and they lose sight of the true underlying factors that created success in the first place. When the rhetoric of success, meaning we're successful because we do these specific things, replaces penetrating understanding and insight, we're successful because we understand why we do these specific things and under what conditions they would no longer work, decline will very likely follow. Stage 2, undisciplined pursuit of more. Hubris from stage 1, meaning we're so great we can do anything, leads right into stage 2, the undisciplined pursuit of more scale, more growth, more acclaim, more of whatever those in power see as success. Companies in stage 2 stray from the disciplined creativity that led them to greatness in the first place, making undisciplined leaps into areas where they cannot be great or growing faster than they can achieve with excellence or both. When an organization grows beyond its ability to fill its key seats with the right people, it has set itself up for a fall. Although complacency and resistance to change remain dangers to any successful enterprise, overreaching better captures how the mighty fall. Stage 3, and this is the last one. There's actually 5 stages. Stage 3, denial of risk and peril. This is the key one I want to bring all of our minds to, and that ties into the challenge that I want to give, that I'm giving. What on your job, in your team, at church, in your company, in your organization, with your leadership team, wherever, what denial is there, or complacency where you're not productively paranoid and essentially being open to understanding what the true situation is, the risks are, the peril. As companies move into stage 3, internal warning signals begin to mount, yet external results remain strong enough to explain away disturbing data or to suggest that the difficulties are temporary or cyclic or not that bad. And nothing is fundamentally wrong. In stage 3, leaders discount negative data, amplify positive data, and put a positive spin on ambiguous data. Those in power start to blame external factors for setbacks rather than accept responsibility. The vigorous, fact-based dialogue that characterizes high-performance teams dwindles or disappears altogether. When those in power begin to imperil the enterprise by taking outsized risks and acting in a way that denies the consequences of those risks, they're headed straight for stage 4, which is grasping for salvation, and stage 5 is capitulation to irrelevance or death. And so I do want to say that the first part of the reflection here, the lessons learned that I really want us to focus on, is that we're not productively paranoid. Because of hubris or pride or complacency, we stop looking for where the problems are. Most of the time, when the airline crashed, when the tip fell, when the oil spill happened, nothing was going wrong for years until something did go wrong, until people died, until there were major, massive consequences to people's lives or the environment or the lives of animals within those environments. I mean, huge problems as people drifted into failure. And so right now, if you're listening to this podcast, are things going well on your job? Great. Have you become complacent? Are you productively paranoid enough? Are you checking JHAs? Are you checking pretest plans? Are you looking at the silica exposure? Are you looking at your high height risks where you have people working at heights and you need to be looking and preventing people from falling? Are you invigorating and enlivening and energizing your safety program? Are you looking at financial risk, or do you think it's just a coast to the end? Are you looking at schedule risk? What is happening in this moment of calm that could lead to the next failure, which could be determining somebody's life, somebody's fate, your career, consequences that are then out of our control? And so the vision for this is that I don't want to freak anybody out. There's a difference between unproductive paranoia and productive paranoia. And productive paranoia is the kind of paranoia where we're realistic about the data, the facts, what could happen, and we don't, and this is my challenge, so I'll just give you this. Be productively paranoid. Don't discount what people are saying. Take every safety concern seriously. Do not push things under the rug. And if you ever feel like you're comfortable and in your comfort zone, that's fine for a minute. But get out for a little bit and find out if you are complacently allowing failure to drift into your organization and into your environment. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.